If you're a business owner or a leader in business, here is a really important reminder. Amid endless talk of disruptive innovation, it's important to remember that not all competitive landscapes are remade violently overnight. Obsolescence creeps as often as it lunges. And while leaders are obsessing about, not getting big banged out of existence, odds are good that most of the companies will actually suffer a more pedestrian fate, which is that they will just simply cease to matter. I was reading an article recently by innovation expert Deborah Kay, in which she said companies are afraid to ask the relevance question. While I agree with her, it's worth noting how in a WISE, W-I-S-E world, addressing the relevance question will still leave you fighting an increasingly steep uphill battle. And by the way, if you're not familiar with the acronym WISE, it stands for Widening, Intertwining, Surprising, and Escalating, which are 4 trends that I've observed in the world after working with leaders in over 40 countries, leaders in business, in politics, military, and academia. Now, these 4 trends, widening, intertwining, surprising, and escalating, we can also think of them as characteristics of the world, by the way. They're impacting the longevity and the significance of businesses and what you're able to achieve today. And so if you want to learn more about these 4 trends and how they're creating change and how that change is impacting your business, I've actually created other videos where I unpack them in more detail. But for now, suffice to say that in our world today and where these 4 trends are taking us in the future, more than relevance, we need to prioritize significance. The relevance question asks, is what I'm making or selling still relevant, and will it be in 5 or 10 years from now? But the significance question asks, is who and what we are important to the world, and in the future, will we still have qualities worthy of attention? The escalating complexity of the WISE context we face makes a demand on us to develop our significance. Without it, our products and services' relevance may not be enough of a match for the dynamics of a WISE world and against competitors who are developing significance. And so what creates significance? Well, in this video, I'll share with you my significant influence model, which provides a framework for you to gain and retain significance in today's world. We may not know exactly what the world will look like in, say, 10 years from now, but we are confident on how significance is developed. Significance is attained when a company generates purpose-led influence, operates in a consciously congruent way with its purpose, and develops responsive leaders who are able to influence themselves and the organization in new directions. So let's unpack each area of influence in the significant influence model. And the first one is self-influence, which comprises of mindfulness and mindset. Now, previous eras like the industrial and information ages have already given us great knowledge and capabilities. That's why in a WISE world, the differentiator is how one uses one's mind. It's about the structure of our thinking. So not only what we think about, but also how we think about it. This is so important, and it's why Harvard, Oxford, Cambridge, Stanford, and other top academic institutions have dedicated research facilities studying ways to optimize the brain and influence mindfulness and things like that. And this research is applied in their leadership development programs. And then we have companies like Apple, Google, Nike, AOL, Time Warner, McKinsey & Co., Yahoo, Deutsche Bank, Procter & Gamble, HBO, and more, who have actually hired heads of mindfulness to help teams thrive and to help leaders influence their teams more effectively. Take, for example, Aetna, which is a medical insurance company and one of the 100 largest firms in the US by revenue. They calculated that productivity gains alone after introducing a mindfulness program were about $3,000 per employee, equaling an 11-to-1 return on investment. And finally, here's another example. General Mills, the food company behind products like Old El Paso, Häagen-Dazs, and Cheerios, they found that 80% of senior executives reported that they had improved their decision-making process after an internal mindfulness program, and 89% of them said that they had become better listeners. And by the way, on that note, subsequent to them having put in this program, Leadership Excellence magazines ranked General Mills the best for developing leaders, up from 14th place the prior year. One of the biggest reasons to engage in a process that develops your mindfulness is that it helps you to become aware of your blind spots. That is to say, it gives you awareness in the ways that you're reacting to situations, to people, ideas, and so on, in ways that aren't serving you, that are self-defeating. Now, of course, there are other reasons, like better overall well-being, when it comes to mindfulness, but not many people actually know enough about the specific ways that mindfulness and self-influence can help leaders or business owners like you to grow your business. In the white paper that I wrote, by the way, called Redefining Business Significance in a Wise World, I include a comparison table that clearly shows what the old world without mindfulness is like compared to the new world with mindfulness as a leader or a business owner. And so if you haven't read that white paper, you'll be able to find a link to download it and read it for free on this page, and I highly recommend that you do. But anyway, let's move on to the second field of influence, which is influence with others, which of course we know is leadership. Leadership and influence are the same thing. A wise world requires leaders, not just managers. You see, a manager can help an organization maintain direction, but only leaders are able to influence the organization in new directions. You know, while management is part of leadership, systems and processes can only go so far, and that is the domain of management. You know, to truly move people, which is vital for retaining significance in a wise world that's changing all the time, leaders need to have influence ability. A leader without influence is like a magnet without magnetism. It looks the part, but it has no pull power to move anything. And so in a world that's changing all the time, you need leadership. And you need to scale leadership in your business to take it to the next level. Now, in another video, by the way, I talk about the leadership capacity gap, which illustrates the reason why leaders often unconsciously self-sabotage during times of change, and of course how they lose influence and effectiveness in the process. So keep an eye out for that lesson about the capacity gap, because it's really important. By the way, influence with others isn't exclusive to leadership. It can also relate to things like sales or negotiation, communication, relationship building, conflict management or resolution. In other words, anytime that you're interacting with another person, there is an exchange of influence. And so I most often talk about influence with others as leadership, because even something like selling is in effect leading another person. It might just be your client instead of your team member or colleague. Now, the third area of influence in the significant influence model is influence with a cause that's bigger than just yourself. And this really speaks to purpose. In our wise world, the longer a company lacks purpose beyond profit, the more its significance will trend downwards. Now, purpose actually needs to be considered part of your strategy, something that not only sets you apart from your competitors or attracts and retains the best talent, but which acts as a guidepost to make leadership decisions. Earlier today, funnily enough, I was actually having a conversation with a new friend and client who owns one of the biggest companies in his industry in this country, and their purpose talks to not only improving the lives of their staff and their clients, but also the lives of everyone in the country as a whole. And so not long ago, they were actually approached by a large foreign country that wanted to acquire them, and this would have been an enormous deal for them. But they looked at their purpose and they asked the question, would selling 100% of our company to a foreign company help to grow our country? And the answer obviously was no, and so they turned down the offer. Now, as it turned out, a wave of purpose-led influence went throughout the business, and actually they had their best year ever last year in terms of growth, in terms of revenue, and even compared to pre-COVID. And so this is the true power of purpose. Anyone who still thinks that purpose is just airy-fairy stuff really does not understand the difference that it makes, the longevity that it gives your business, the significance that it gives it in a world that is widening, intertwining, surprising, and escalating. So now you can see how all of these areas of influence work together. You know, when mindfulness and leadership meet, we get responsive leaders, which is the opposite of reactive leaders. And by the way, I've got another great video that I really recommend that unpacks beautifully the difference between responsive and reactive leaders and how to move across there. Take, for example, leadership meeting purpose. There we get purpose-led influence, which ensures that the company will not be led astray. Staying true to your purpose is a strategic advantage, and it needs to be driven by those who have influence, and the people who have influence are leaders. And lastly, when mindfulness meets purpose, we get what I call conscious congruence, which is a type of maturity that a company develops as it behaves and makes decisions which are congruent with its purpose. Again, a strategic advantage. In our WISE world, leaders need to be able to adapt to and leverage the escalating changes around them if they want to avoid losing significance and, of course, being eliminated from the game. And your business ultimately grows by holding significance. Significance in the lives of the people it employs, the market it serves, the causes it supports. And without gaining and retaining significance, companies are eventually disrupted, replaced, or they just simply cease to matter over time. I've shown you here through the significant influence model how significance is attained when a company generates purpose-led influence, operates consciously congruent with its purpose, and develops responsive leaders who are able to influence themselves and the organization in new directions. So if you're a business owner or a leader in your business, what should you do next? Well, start by exploring some of the points that I've raised in this video. You could share it with a colleague and discuss the appropriate near and long-term approaches that could be taken to implement this model and develop all 3 areas of influence throughout your entire team. Now, on this page, I'll also include information on how I can personally work with you and your team to help you establish that influence in all 3 areas if that's something that you would like to look into. But on this page, we'll also include links to additional resources. For example, the next topic that I'll be releasing is all about what I call the leadership capacity gap, which is something that I mentioned earlier. And in this video, I'll be visually demonstrating what and how leaders need to grow if they want to grow their business in today's changing world. That's really vital to help you and your company remain significant and to grow in this increasingly widening, intertwining, surprising, and escalating context that we face. If you found this video helpful, then please don't leave before subscribing so I can continue to serve you. And I invite you to follow me on your favorite social media platform. I'd love to personally connect and engage with you there. So go ahead, follow me, leave a comment on any of the daily material that I post, and let's have a conversation. Thank you for your interest in leadership and influence. And from me, Gilan, your coach and friend, I'll see you soon.